as the years passed and we had our family, I began to realize that how you spend your time matters with your kids because you get one shot.
What do I need in order to show up as the best pastor, right?
And so I think it's a spiritual growth opportunity for me as I get to stretch what God's grace really looks like in all forms and facets of life as opposed to just what I'm comfortable with.
This is Pod Strangely Warmed, a place where we tell the good Methodist story, where we have conversations that invite followers of Jesus to seek after that loving, just, and free world that God imagines for us all, and have a little fun along the way. Hey, Pod Strangely Warm family, welcome back. We are in Plano today, and it's July, which means it's pastoral transition season in the life of the United Methodist Church. And today on the podcast, I'm incredibly excited to be joined by Dr. Edgar Bazan and Reverend David Lessner, two pastors who have experienced transition this July. You're on all of what, week 2?
16 days in.
16 days in.
I think it was 6 months already.
Is this the Jesus, it's been 3 years but feels like 30 kind of moment, right? No. 2 weeks into your new appointments at First Celina and First Arlington, we're thankful for you taking time to drop into what is likely a very full schedule to spend some time with us, to give us a window into the experience of itineration, its impact on churches, its impact on our families, and some kind of best practices for how we as pastors and churches can work through this process as best we can. And so thank you for being here today.
It's great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's our real joy. In order to get started today, we want to begin with something that helps those across this Horizon Texas Conference get to know the two of you a little better. And so we invited you to bring yourself on a shelf. Edgar, what did you bring to introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, so when I was at my previous appointment, one Sunday I just said this to the church as a benediction: God loves you, and there is nothing you can do about that. And then just stay with me. I kept saying that every Sunday, and now this was a gift from my peeps from New World. They all signed it.
Oh, very good.
And I used the same phrase for Celina last week, and now they're saying it too. So
Nice.
This is now my thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're going to have a thing, that's a really
That's a
good
really
thing.
good
Yeah.
Very good. Thanks, Edgar.
Yeah,
When you're not at church, where do you find joy? What do you enjoy doing?
Well, of course, with my family, spending time with my family, just enjoy my kids. My kids, what they do, they're very musical, and they'll do mixed martial arts as well. So just spending time with them, taking them to all the things that they do, and going for walks, watching movies with them, and stuff like that. I mean, just normal stuff, I suppose. Yeah.
So I knew we weren't supposed to challenge your oldest son to an electric guitar battle. I didn't know about the MMA thing. So just no battles at all with the Bazan family.
Well,
it's not going to work out well.
He can shred and he can take me down anytime. I tell you that.
Okay.
Is he allowed to use the guitar in the octagon? Can that come in as like a WWE weapon or something?
It could be an entrance, right?
It could
Right.
be.
It could be an entrance.
there you go.
I like that.
I will see.
Throw a little Crazy Train win before he beats you up. I like it.
Yeah. So anyway, he
Very
can
good.
actually hurt me, so I need to be careful when I wrestle with him. Yes.
It's the joy of being a girl dad. I outweigh everybody by at least 100 pounds, and so I'm okay. And so it's all good. David, what did you bring to introduce yourself to the rest of us here?
I had a little bit of a challenge with this assignment, but I brought this Mr. Rogers Funko Pop thing. I am not a Funko Pop collector, but about, I guess it was 6 years ago, there was a documentary on Fred Rogers that came out called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And so I did a whole sermon series because the church that I was serving at the time was accused of being a country club church. And so we did this whole neighboring community emphasis. And I dressed up like Mr. Rogers every single day. And I took off my shoes and I put them on. And something about it just clicked. And since that moment, everyone started talking about you have Fred Rogers aura.
Okay.
So someone gave me this, and one of my friends, Marcus Womack, always used to ask the great question of how can we be great neighbors as churches? And that stuck with me, and so I keep this in my office just as a reminder that the churches is just supposed to dominate their community. They're supposed to be good neighbors with whoever is around them, and so that's just kind of been a guiding principle now.
Very good.
Yeah.
So when you're not channeling Mr. Rogers vibes from the pulpit, what gives you joy and brings you life outside of work at church?
Yeah, a little bit like Edgar was saying that, a lot of time spent with my family. I have 2 high school age daughters, and I
grew up in athletics and playing sports, and I always dreamed that one day I would coach them on the soccer pitch or otherwise, maybe volleyball. And instead, I am going to dance competitions and drill team and theater and musical theater, and I love it. My youngest daughter and I go to almost every community play that she has friends in, and we just saw Les Mis on Friday. A student edition was fantastic, and my oldest daughter is just fun because I can't dance to save my life. Cannot dance at all. And she is very good. So when she'll go through a routine, I just break in and try and copy it. And it provides a little bit of moment of hilarity in there. But I love hiking. If I can go to National Park, I'm at home. So in McKinney, Texas, there's not a lot of that, but there are trail systems that are nice. So I love being outside. I love nature. If I ever get the chance to buy a kayak, and do the whole Trinity River, maybe that'd be fun.
That'd be cool.
So yeah, outdoors, and then anytime I get to play any sport of any variety, that's probably like where I find like my most joy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
I should have said that I've been to maybe 20 concerts in my whole life, and all of them have taken place in the last year and a half.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's
when your kids find their passion, it gets channeled.
That's what it is. Yeah. So
Y'all had amazing seats from the Metallica concert. If you want to, go back and stalk Edgar's socials, those were some amazing seats.
James Hetfield was right here.
Oh my
I'll
gosh.
tell you that.
Yeah.
So,
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's pretty remarkable.
The tickets to the last concert I went to, I think it was Pink, because my wife really likes Pink, and she was somewhere within, like, we could have maybe fired a missile and just come short of her. Yeah. It was a little bit.
Y'all were in the same
farther.
zip code, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. I think if you expand AT&T Stadium out, we were in the rafters. Yeah.
In the helicopter above the stadium, looking through. Yeah.
Well, the cool thing though is she does this like aerial circus stuff. Okay. So even if you are up in the rafters, she flies around the entire stadium on this like harness. So even though we were up there, a couple of the songs, she's like spinning and flipping, but she's only maybe like 25 yards in front of us now.
Wow.
So it was fantastic. It was a
That's
great
cool.
concert. I would have never imagined going to a Pink concert, and it was phenomenal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very good.
Right.
That is not something that I would have the guts to do, flying around the top,
Right.
Talk about not being able to dance. That's a whole another level of coordination midair and all of that.
Yeah.
Joy Dister Dominguez was preaching at Creekwood, kind of in this season of transition, and took a photo op with the giant head David. I got to know the story behind the giant head.
So I will say that Creekwood set the gold standard for pastoral send-offs. It was just a phenomenal time of celebrating 10 and a half years of ministry together. And we have a gentleman named Paul Pace who owns Pace Graphics. He's an environmental design company, and Paul's been very generous with signage for the church and environmental design for the church. So he printed about 8 life-size cutouts of me in various positions. And the funniest one was, it wasn't the one that Joy took, but the funniest one was me dressed as, so I had this character called Bible Man that I did at Creekwood, where I, when we did 3rd grade Bibles, I would dress up as a superhero, and I was largely incompetent. And like Carrie Lynn Lucas was our associate, and she would be like the smart one, and I was the dumb one, but we'd hand out the Bibles and talk about the importance of the Bible. So it's a picture of me doing this as a superhero, but they put it right behind the donuts and coffee. So when you walk in, it's like life size, right behind the donuts, and it freaked everybody out. So there's one where I was giving a high five to a kid, but they cut out the kids, so everybody kept coming by and like bending down and high fiving.
Okay.
And multiple of the children, like that I have pictures, like their parents have pictures of me high fiving them. So now they have older pictures of their kids high fiving this cutout.
Okay.
And the weirder part about it was bizarre. Like to walk into I didn't know any of this was happening. I walk into the sanctuary or the worship center that day, and there's just me everywhere, which is radically uncomfortable and bizarre. One of the families I found out took one of these cutouts home and is using it to play pranks on each other.
I was just thinking, like,
so they're like putting it in like a shower, like a psycho scene, or at the breakfast table or something. So they keep sending me selfies of like I'm about to prank Brian, or it's pretty funny.
You can use it when you're driving your car, in the HUV. You can do the law with it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I need to recover those.
Oh my goodness.
That's like next level. When I left Meridian 6 years ago, they stole my phone in the middle of church. Okay. Because I'd set it down and just walked away from it, and they picked it up and took like selfies with everybody in the room so that I would have them in. So that's next level though.
I would say they set the gold standard for how to like send somebody off. It was such an affirming, just blessed day. Yeah. And I had when Joe Poole had left Rockwall, I remember someone I know who goes to First Rockwall commenting about, his last sermon wasn't about him. It wasn't about, it was on Christ and it was on the church, and it was just like he was never leaving. And I remember being so inspired by that example that Joe said of like, all right, I'm going to make sure my sermon is a healing thing. It's a transitional thing. I ended up crying at the end of it, and I've been there 10 years, but like it was really emphatic that like this is not going to be about me. So I had gone through these great lengths of like, all right, this is going to be about Jesus, and then I walk in and my face is everywhere.
David and I go by years.
Yeah, years.
I remember that when perhaps the first time we met, you were at Stonebridge and you were playing basketball with some kids. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
So, you're a great man, and I'm so happy to hear that. People appreciated you like that.
Well, and when I was at Stonebridge, it was funny, and I love this kind of connectional example because Edgar was at Oak Cliff at the time, and Oak Cliff closed for building and financial reasons, but at Stonebridge we were doing a very creative worship service, and we didn't have some certain piece of equitment, so I loved that I got to drive down to Oak Cliff because they had something we didn't.
That's really
that's where we had lunch there that one time.
That.
Yeah,
that's great.
So it was fun.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm sure whatever it was brought millions of people to Jesus.
So you're saying you owe me?
I owe you. Yeah.
All of David's success is from that one piece of equipment.
It's been 15 years. I probably owe you a favor somewhere along the way.
Right,
yeah.
Very good. Very good. Y'all both mentioned the power and importance of family in your life and in this season of transition. One of the things that we can't underestimate is the impact of itineration on our families, right? Describe for me, not just in this movement process, but what is itineration like in your family? Y'all have both moved before. This is not your first run through with it. What is the impact on your family, and how do you help your family navigate these seasons of change?
Yeah, so for me, it's been interesting. I got commissioned when I was in Kansas. My wife was doing a master's degree up there, but I was only up there as a commissioned elder for like 4 months or something. They pulled me back in pretty fast. Like my wife wasn't even done with her master's degree. Like we found out she was pregnant on a Friday, and then we found out we were moving the next Monday. Then she had like a semester left. So she finished before Zoom and online class was a thing. She finished her master's degree from like my mom's office in her house. So I guess that was an impact. But with like our kids, when we moved down to McKinney, I was working in Stonebridge at McKinney. And then they moved to Creekwood, and it's literally like a 15-minute drive across town. So it wasn't a big deal. And when we moved, it was our choice to move houses because it was still in that same general Collin County area. So the kids, when we moved then, were only 3 and 5. They don't even remember Stonebridge. All they remember is that Stonebridge served whole donuts instead of cutting the donuts in half.
Hey, it's the important stuff.
It's the important stuff, right?
So my kids are like, y'all got donuts?
Right. That was the first question when announced. Well, after their massive disgruntlement and how they really let us know about the situation. Sure. The first question was, well, do they have donuts on Sunday morning? And I was like, actually, no, they don't. But sometimes the youth group does, and they're like, they better. So I will be when Sunday school for youth, when they start attending, I will be providing donuts just as to ease the tension. So it's been different now. I mean, they're teenagers. They have connections. My daughter's on the drill team. My other daughter is involved in theater heavily. They've got social networks and friend groups. They were connected intimately with the youth group at Creekwood before we left. So really, like, I have to say, the first reaction was heartbreaking. I always knew it was a possibility, and as I'd been there over 10 years, it really was a possibility I wasn't looking forward to, but I was assuming. So to help them navigate change of things that they've held so dear and the possibility that new things can also be exciting has been both challenging and rewarding. They were really, my wife has handled it in stride. She's done a great job, and she was open to moving like communities and all, but the kids were a little bit more apprehensive because they're in that identity formation period of being a teenager. And and even like at times struggling with, okay, well, what is that identity? Who are my real friends? Who are my people? What's my community? And so whereas I'm moving positions and I'm a church guy, right? I can fit into a church wherever I go.
Right.
My wife's understanding. She knows the benefits of this or the system and what she signed up for on some level, although she probably wouldn't say she signed up for it. But
my wife thought she was marrying a college professor who was going to be radically stable. So
right. My wife thought she was marrying a doctor who was going to med school. So I've heard the bishop's wife say, I thought I was marrying an NFL player.
Yeah. That's right.
So anyway, just
Edgar, what false promise did you make?
Right, exactly.
No, I'm teasing.
So anyway, I think just helping it's impacted their sense of self, and I'm hoping that in the long run they will find themselves more fully because of a transition of I can still be whole and I can still be solid apart from what is comfortable.
Yeah.
And hopefully even have a conditioning experience where I was comfortable here, I was loved here. I don't know if that's going to exist here, but I'm going to find it. And then when they go to college and other places, they'll realize that just because it's new doesn't mean I'm not going to find loving people in that experience. So that's why I'm hoping for that going forward.
I guess my time to answer the question.
Absolutely.
Ditto. That's it. Done. When you have kids, it's a different thing, right? I remember in our early years with Evelyn and myself, it was an adventure, like we're going here, there, wherever you go, it's great, it's fine. As the years passed and we had our family, I began to realize that how you spend your time matters with your kids because you get one shot. It is almost like an existential thought, how much I'm willing to sacrifice for anything, for the church, for whatever, and time-wise and relationships and so on with your family. We have had great experiences with our churches. They have been great to us, to our kids. Our last appointment, that's what our kids remember as little kids because, we were there for 4 years. And now our oldest is going to high school, or the little one is going to 5th grade. And they have those connections that you were talking about, that identity development took place to a great extent over there. And it was great. One thing that I need to, I guess, highlight to some extent is that your church is your family, right? Your church is your first. I mean, your family is your first church. That's what I meant to say. If you're not taking care of them, relationship-wise, time-wise, and so on, then you're gonna regret it.
Right.
Yeah.
So anytime there is a change, whether it's an appointment or whatever it is, I personally am trying to be very thoughtful and careful in how that may impact my family, my kids, my wife, and so on. My wife, has a full-time job and so on. But thankfully, the churches we've been, the church that we are at right now, I mean, they have been great to us. Like I said, you get one shot during these years. Once they complete these formative years, then that's it, right? They go on and live their own lives, and you don't get a second try. So you have to be very mindful of that. And you have to be honest as well. You have to talk about the changes, the processes, and you have to have those conversations. How much are we willing to how much do we need to change in our, daily schedules and, routines and whatnot? Just have to be thoughtful about that because changes are going to happen regardless. And plan for it together, find ways to make it better for everyone as much as you possibly can as you serve your church well. Because, that's also, you have to serve your church well. That's not,
optional.
An optional thing, whatever. Yeah. So because that's your calling. You want to be a good pastor to your church, visit the people, serve well on Sundays, preaching, and lead the church, through all the committees and things like that as you must. But what you don't want is that years from now, have regrets, and your kids, tell you, I hated church.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't want that, right? So everything else that you did, your success probably will be dwarfed by that.
Yeah.
So of course, that's not my experience right now, but I'm mindful that could be if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
So
have itinerated a lot. When I hear 10 and a half years, I'm like, I've been in 3 churches in the last 10, or 4 in the last 10 and a half years, right?
Yeah, I've been lucky.
There's a level of our kids are more resilient than we want to give them credit for.
Yeah.
But we also, are their only advocate in the system too, right? So there's that balancing effect. I remember I'm entering into year 4 at Martin.
Okay.
And so I'd been 4 years at Cleburne before 4 years at Martin, or entering year 4 at Martin. In that spring that I got the call that I was moving, I had said to my DS, if you think I'm going to move, this spring would be way better than any future springs, because our oldest was going into middle school. It's a natural time of transition.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't know each other in the, like when elementaries come together, there's, everybody's new in their own way, right? And so it made sense. And so we got the call, right? But one of the things that I found really beautiful, my oldest just got back from Glen Lake Camp last week, and in her cabin at camp were kids from 3 different church seasons of her life.
Oh, wow.
Right? Good friends from 3 different seasons, right?
Yeah.
Our current season, our previous season, and the one before that. And they had the best time together at camp. And so I'm thankful for my wife's wisdom. One of her pieces of wisdom is we can either think about this as we have to change people every X number of years, right? Or we've got an amazing set of communities of people that we wouldn't have had in our lives otherwise. And so it's both and, right? How can we advocate for our kids to make sure that they have the stability and formation that they need, while also, trying to be open and invite them to a experience of openness. If donuts are required, donuts are required. We're going to invite them into that sense of openness. I want to name, because the Horizon Texas Conference is geographically huge.
Yeah.
All 3 of us have the privilege of serving in Dallas-Fort Worth, where we can consider this question of our appointment can change, but our house may not have to. Right. And that's not true for everybody across our community. That's a gift.
Go to Amarillo. That's a little bit of a commute. Yeah.
Right. So I just want to name and acknowledge that reality, and that is one of our privileges that not everybody gets to do as they're balancing all the dynamics we're talking about. But I do think there is reality and compassion for this. And I think the churches want your kids to thrive.
Of course, yeah.
I was going to say, one of the things I've really found is in both churches, in the Leaving Creekwood and the Going to First Methodist Arlington, obviously, like, the success of the church is on the forefront, but every single person's primary concern was my children. Yeah. They wanted to make sure that they were thriving and they felt included. And when they helped with VBC on like the first week I was ever at Arlington, they were there, and all of these really just sweet people came and surrounded them and were trying to engage them in conversation. And so I really think, and I've only moved a few times, so I don't know how it used to be, but I've heard horror stories, and I feel like churches have adapted and recognized that clergy come with families, and they're not just add-ons, but they're real great human beings that we need to care for.
Yeah. You mentioned that changing people. I think you used that phrase. We have made so many wonderful friends throughout the years. Every church, great people. We have been so blessed by serving, churches that have loved us, just like you said, and that we feel the same way. Very, very excited about for Celina right now. There's a lot of good stuff that I'm seeing. It's going to happen, and so that's what we teach our kids, the blessing, of serving, getting to know people. Although to them, it's like perhaps more like an impressive, change.
We said yes to this; they got voluntold.
Exactly. So, but you have to help them realize the blessing. Also, teach them, guide them in the process. Help them see the good stuff. How you frame the change makes a difference. And you create the environment, the context, and how they experience the change as well. How you talk about the church, how you talk about, with your spouse, about, things that are happening. Because if you're not careful with that, without even realizing, you may spoil the change for them. Right?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, all things are, I'm so happy to hear, what you're sharing about the experience with your kids. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, and as we heard at annual conference, right? People experience change as loss first, right? And so the focus is, what am I losing here, not what am I potentially gaining? And the truth is, it's both, right?
Yeah.
There is both in the midst of that. David, you began to hint at kind of where I want to go next. What can churches do to help optimize and make this process of itineration better, not only for the church's success, but also for pastoral families as they come in? As you guys have experienced change, what's one or two things that First Arlington and First Celina that are doing that have really aided in y'all's transition?
Yeah, I think for me, the SPR group has been really instrumental in helping the fact-finding, introducing me to, I don't want to say the right people, but the people who know the story of the church. Like, they've given me a whole list of people and, like, you should just go have coffee with these people. And I chose to do VBC instead, so I met all the children first.
What is BBC?
VBC is Vacation Bible Camp because nobody wants to go to Vacation Bible School.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It's summer. Summer school is bad. Summer camp is fun.
There's a big non-denom in Plano that advertised a few years ago. It was like VBX, and it's VB Experience. Because nobody wants to go to campus just so outdated or whatever. I was like, what are we doing here, y'all? We have better things to do.
How much did you pay the ad agency to rename your BBC? Yeah.
That church probably paid a lot of money.
Okay.
They will remain nameless. I started receiving emails from people at Arlington in the 5-month waiting period.
Yeah.
And you can never totally tell, you don't know those people's stories, you don't know their involvement. I ended up getting an email from somebody who's incredibly helpful now and incredibly present and available. And I got an email from somebody who hasn't been to the church in like 3 years because they had a little disgruntlement. But the way they introduced themselves is, I'm a super involved, active member. And so the SPR group has been great about introducing me to the people who really know the history of this church, who know the current culture of the church, so that I can branch out from them to, well, who else should I meet? And they can give me some other people that they're connected with, or in conversation, they can talk about the mission that they're plugged into and introduce me to the elementary school principal. And so again, it's only been 16 days, but so working through that list has been really great. So that's one, I think, is providing some guidance on who are the first people you should talk to. I think the other thing that, I already alluded to this, but I'm commuting from McKinney. I've got a family that has interests and otherwise, and I think they've done a really, really good job of making sure that I am comfortable so I can do the best job that I can. And so making sure that I don't, I'm not consistently worried about whether my family's going to fit in or be taken care of or whatever, so that I can let them care for my family on some level. So instead of me having to just follow them around to the youth center or wherever, I know they're safe. I know they're handled. I know they're loved. And they will come to know that as well. But that means I can then focus my attention on the sermon that I'm giving that day, or learning people's names, or the pastoral care that I'm offering. So providing that solid system to where it's just easy for them to get integrated. Whether they choose to or not is their decision, but it's easy for them to get integrated. That gives you a freedom. So it gives me a freedom to focus on my job, as opposed to if I were just visiting a church with my family, my first priority would be like, okay, I'm going to walk you here and I'm going to walk you there. Right. And there are plenty of people who have just stepped up and said, like, hey, yeah, come with me. And, maybe I'm too trusting of a person, but that's,
Well, you got a really good crew at Arlington.
It's a great crew. It is awesome. Especially, the staff over there is just top notch. It's fantastic. Yeah. So, what about you?
What about me? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I knew I needed to hit the road, from the beginning. So we plan to have meet and greet meetings with families, and we started that back in May. So my goal was to meet as many people as possibly could before my first Sunday, because when that first Sunday when I show up, I wanted for people to have a connection with me, and and have a relationship, to whatever extent. One thing that you learn over the years is that we human beings, we are emotional people. That's a good thing. We have fears, we have hopes, and so on. And one of the most crucial things that happens in churches is the relationships. So, and you establish relationships by spending time together, by asking questions, by getting to know one another, and by building trust, having that connection. And whenever there's a change, people are suspicious. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's just like, who are you, right?
Right.
And I really wanted to answer as many questions as I possibly could. I mean, like, just by interacting with people, like, he's actually a good guy.
Right.
And he's funny. I don't know. Hopefully, yeah.
I was gonna say, wow, we need some proof of that. I think.
Proof of that, yeah.
Later, we'll put you to the test.
Yeah. So
That's the kid's job. Is the laugh sign? Right,
joke.
laugh now.
Laugh now. Yeah. Applause. Really, I mean, although my first Sunday in Celina was, the first Sunday in July, by then I already had established what I believe were strong connections with some of the people, getting to know them, hearing their stories, and vice versa. They getting to know us, and hearing what I thought about some of the questions they had, and as a pastor, I have learned that in order for you to be successful for the sake of the church, you have to have that trust that I was talking about, and that you have to have those relationships. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to carry you through everything. If you have a big vision and you are very skillful and charismatic, but people don't trust you, it's not going to work. And so I really go back to the basics of that, because I recognize, as I recognize in my own self, my human, nature, that I want to answer questions that people may have in their minds before they even ask them, or they know they have them. So we can move on to that, to what we want to accomplish. Instead of spending 6 months, or a year doing that, I wanted to do that, as fast as I possibly could, so we can focus on ministry.
This is really interesting. So I was thinking about one of the things that First Arlington did really well for me, and this might have been some of the associate pastors who helped out with this, but what they did that helped me start really well was they actually guarded me from having to go meet a whole bunch of people and letting me have the time off. So, and some of that was my own boundaries of knowing I needed a break. I was pretty tired at the moment and a lot of emotional toll in leaving, but they were really good about, okay, the SPR chair is going to call you, maybe one of the other SPR people, some of the staff, and basically you reach out to who you want to reach out to, but otherwise we're going to help you keep your distance.
Nice. Okay.
And so I got to go to Gulf Shores with my family and sit on the beach for a little while, and then I just got a few weeks to cart my kids around and have fun, and didn't have to think about anything before I knew I was going to have to think about everything. So it was different, right?
Well, but in many ways that was my personal, decision or desire, what I wanted to accomplish. Because I have a sense of urgency at the church in a positive way. Like, this church is primed for great things, and and there's no time to waste. So, what are the things that I need to do to see that happen? As fast as we possibly can see it. And I knew it was relationships, building the trust. But I get what you're saying. It's different, perhaps contexts.
Itineration hits us in different seasons,
right?
And what you both have named that I think is really powerful is there's internal self-awareness that's required to navigate these things well, right? What do I need in order to show up as the best pastor, right? I need to relationally know everybody before I get started, right? So that we can begin to build that trust. I need to be rested and reconnected. Sabbath is essential before, I can't go from one sprint to another, right? There's got to be, the legs got to rest for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But being aware of that is critical, right? That's part of our, if we're given, we started this looking for a church-related checklist, but I think that's a critical part of the pastor's checklist.
That's
right?
a good name, yeah.
That's a great way,
How do we know where we're at, who we are, so that we can show up best? Right. For me, those relationships are critical too, right? And when I got to Martin, they were having vacation Bible camp the week before I was supposed to show up.
Okay.
I was like, first I'm like, no! And then I just said, I'm calling the DS, I'm showing up early, right? Because of the relational connections and capacities, the ways for your kids to get to know people, the way for us to get to know people. And vacation Bible camp as the preacher at a mid-size or a large church is cake. I don't do squat other than say hi to people and encourage people and hold doors and, and take a pie in the face at the end of the week.
I led games the whole week.
That's your own fault.
I know, right? It was actually, that was like my personal choice of like.
You didn't know that you.
Well, I think
you can say no, David.
No, the girls love helping with VBS, and they wanted to serve with me though, so it was like a safety valve.
Okay.
And the best way to do that was for us to be in one station. And they're like, well, you can do science. I was like, yeah, I'm all for that. And they're like, or you can do games. I was like, sign me up. I could be chaotic and crazy with a whole bunch of little kids. So yeah,
that's awesome. That's all. And games is better than music. I end up getting shoehorned into music on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah.
About once an appointment, and those songs never leave your brain.
No,
I still have
true.
Cokesbury VBS from 2001 in my head. We're on a hero quest, right?
My
Powered by
goodness.
faith.
Are you a musician?
Going into college, I was either going to be church music or economics.
Okay.
And I decided to do economics. And then God whacked me on the head anyway. So,
I'm not a musician, but at Creekwood, we had this really talented, like middle school into high school or young lady who wanted to lead music, but we needed a warm body of an adult to be in the room with her and a few other volunteers. So like 3 years ago, I got put in, and I have no singing ability at all and very little dance ability.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, he can verify. So I got up there though, and I was just, if nothing else, I will sell out for whatever I'm doing.
Yeah. Hey.
And everyone loved it. So for the last 2 years, they're like, we want you to lead music again. I was like,
only if I have my ringer next to
right.
it.
If Cora leads, I will help. That's only the condition.
I can be woo. And that's important. People need woo, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's all tied into, not to take a rabbit hole down VBC for a second, but that creating core memories of joy attached to church is critical.
Yeah.
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
So whether it's the pastor's dancing like a fool and Bible man on third grade Bible Sunday and taking pies in the face, all that stuff is aimed at core critical memory.
I tend to be sometimes catastrophic in my thinking, and I mean that in a positive way, I suppose. Once you hit your middle age time, I'm 43. I think you are 43 as well.
Both, yeah.
Old men.
Man.
What are you talking about? This is
Hey,
the
I'm
new
40,
teens.
so y'all
Yeah, I
are
was
old.
gonna
That's
say.
what I'm saying. No, it's,
You got no hair, my hair's going away.
Hey, so I used to be in the young clergy group.
Oh, right.
And then I'm not getting those emails anymore. What's going on? Oh, I'm over 40 now. No, something that I do, and I don't know if this is an experience that you share with me, but you start thinking how many years I have left, in this season of my life, and so on. So you begin to really be careful about the quality of the time you're spending with your family, with your church, and everything you do, and with the people that actually want to be with you, and so on. So when you're talking about, the quality, the joy, life at the end of the day is going to be about the memories, right? So the good, the bad, the things that you learn from that, the wisdom, and the joys. So when I speak of the human nature, that's part of what I have in mind. Having those experiences, having those memories, creating the space and time to have those joyful moments and so on. And sometimes we want to be careful as pastors. They're going to slip away because we work with so many people, or time is consumed by so many people. We don't check in and check out, and then that's it. We're constantly, I don't know if this happens to you, probably does that, but you're constantly thinking about what's going on. You never check out.
No, never.
You're always working on your sermon.
Right.
You're always working on, I have a great idea. And so having that awareness to me has been very helpful, because I can serve my church well, but I also love my family, create the space that you mentioned, Daniel, the joys. Because years from now, I know it's going to sound very, dramatic, but the people who are going to be next to you, on your deathbed, it's going to be your kids,
Yeah.
and your family, hopefully your grandkids. So anyway,
they're going to be waiting for Edgar to drop a John Wesley-esque line. Best of all, God is with us, right? You got to have like that level of a line. Be prepared. It sounds like you're preparing for that moment. So have your good line to drop,
and to get all the inheritance, all the money, and everything.
That's right. Yeah. I will say the cool part about when the news dropped that I was going to First Arlington, leaving Creekwood, I still had people from Stonebridge that, and this is through the beauty of social media, and I guess what I can do, but it was cool to have people from Stonebridge who texted me right then and was like, hey, congratulations, this is awesome. How are you doing with this? And realized that I still had those connections from 10 years ago. And on my first day, on July 1st, when I went to the office at Arlington, I had, I want to say, over 30-something text messages from people at Creekwood and Stonebridge who were like, hey, I hope the first day goes great.
Love that.
And so, like, you talk about this Hebrews standing on the cloud of witnesses. It's just inspiring. Like, even though I'm not going out to dinner with these people, or our families aren't hanging out as much anymore, to know that I'm just had this huge wave of support for years and years and years, and that's something that you
Those are the
can't do
memories,
outside
the
of an
joys.
itinerary connectional system. So, like you said, with your daughter at camp, you know, you have just multiple iterations of what life looked like all in one place, and through the joy of technology, we can do those things. Our weird part now is that we moved from the Legacy North Texas Conference to the Legacy Central Texas Conference. So we're asking the question of like, all right, well, are we still going to send our kids to Bridgeport, where they know some people, or are we going to send them to Glen
Loyalties.
Lake?
There's only one correct answer to that question. I'm just saying, you know.
Both is the correct answer. Yeah. But anyway, and it's just weird because it's because of the legacy nature of it. It's a very like people keep asking me like, oh, you've probably met so and so, and I was like, no, actually, I haven't. I have no idea who any of these other clergy people are. So for my family, it's also interesting because it's a whole different set of clergy spouses and a whole different set of clergy kids or camp kids or whatever. So we'll navigate that eventually.
That is one of the beauties and the challenges that is facing us as we continue to become the Horizon Texas Conference, right? I thought I knew a lot of people and had managed to, you know, this is a great gift. I get to meet a lot of amazing folks through this, through delegation work, through other things. But when we got the appointment sheets at annual conference, or the PDF of the appointment sheet, scrolling through like the enormity of how big we are now, right? Both in terms of number of clergy and number of places and communities that we're active in, it kind of does hit you, in a meaningful way.
Well, I'm sure you know, like, I mean, you know, if we're to say the words New World in Garland, and then there's a New World in Arlington, and
you have to specify which one.
You have to specify, but then you know, if I were to say First Rockwall, Edgar kind of knows a little bit about what Rockwall is like. But then I keep hearing all these churches, then, you know, Cleburne or Bedford or whatever. And I was like, oh, I knew those cities existed, but I had no idea what churches are there or the history of the churches and how. And I found just even in a quick segment, like the histories and story, even recently, of First Arlington and Trinity United Methodist and Epworth United Methodist. And all these are just like very intertwined. And it's just something that I don't have that background. And so it's a cool adventure. I'm somebody who likes change on some level. So I'm excited about learning these stories, but it is because we have merged together, it's just I'm not as connected as I thought I was.
As we put a bow on the podcast today, David, you've kind of named one of the maybe unspoken, unintended blessings of itinerancy. If you had to name one or kind of a thing that kind of caught you off guard that has ended up being a positive thing in these seasons of change and transition, what would that be?
Well, when I first got the call about going to Celina, I heard about the name, right? Celina. Actually, 10 years ago, my wife and I were driving. We're going on a quick road trip, and we drove by the previous building, the old building, and we took a picture in front of it. And that's as far as what we knew about Celina. So I was like, we're going where? What's going on there? So, but once we went, met the people, saw the city, what was going on, it's like I wasn't expecting to be this excited about what's happening there, the possibilities. I don't know if you know this, but Celina is one of the fastest growing cities in the state, maybe in the nation, you know, and it's amazing. They expect it to be as large as Frisco, larger than Frisco.
Wow.
So
with as many stadiums?
Well, let me just give you some perspective. They're planning to build an elementary school a year for the next 7-8 years.
Wow.
So they just passed a over $2 billion bond to build like 50 new schools, elementary, high schools, and whatnot. So the boom is taking place. I wasn't expecting that. Because when 10 years ago, it was like a small town, a lot of longhorns, and cows around.
A lot of 3A state championships in Celina.
That's true. Right. Oh my goodness, they are competitive.
3A is going to be 6A pretty quick.
Right.
By the way,
they're going to be playing Allen soon.
Orange and white to my Celina folks. So those are the colors of the.
And here I've got like 9 high schools in Arlington I've got to adopt now. Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to be this exciting, and I mean that in a really positive way. I can see great things happening, and I hope that God is, of course, will be faithful, but that we are faithful to what's going on, and so yeah, it's a bright future, if we just do the things that we're called to do.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about it. The first thing I would say is the connection. Like I get to meet all sorts of really interesting people everywhere I go, and it's so fun. And even from the transition standpoint, like I think I've done a pretty good job of helping Creekwood move and empower Alex Williams to come in. And I only loosely knew Alex before, but I have had a blast working with him in this transition. Like he's an awesome guy. And so that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
Now we have a shared legacy of churches that we've served together. And I've shared that with like, Holly Bandel was at Creekwood before, and I didn't know her very well. And so it's just kind of a cool way of getting to know other clergy. A secondary thing I'll say is a little bit of story. I remember driving Stacy Road is a major thoroughfare in the Allen area, Fairview area, into McKinney. And I live in McKinney on Stacy Road and churches on Stacy Road in Fairview and Allen. And I grew up on Stacy Road when I was a kid. So I was driving one day, and I remember thinking, I have literally driven on Stacy Road for like 33 out of 43 years of my life.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time for something different. And that was a year and a half before I got a call to move to Arlington. And I got really excited about, I'm going to go experience new restaurants. Like, I'm going to go experience this new way of life and this new community. And so that's been really fun. But similar to what Edgar was saying, I think the main answer I would offer is I grew up in the suburbs. I've served 2 suburban churches, and I always just assumed I'll be a suburban pastor. This is where God uses me. This is what I'm good at. This is the people I know. And now all of a sudden I'm in the middle of downtown Arlington.
Yeah.
And I think
So
it's completely opposite. Yeah. And so, I mean, now we've got just everything looking pristine to we have literal unsheltered people who sleep on our doorstep. And they go to church and they're members. And it's just a very unique, different style that I'm learning. And I think the blessing is that for me and my spiritual growth, God is present in all things, and I can live out my calling in all places, as opposed to it being segmented. So I think it's a spiritual growth opportunity for me as I get to stretch what God's grace really looks like in all forms and facets of life, as opposed to just what I'm comfortable with.
God can work on all things in all places.
All things in all places, yeah.
Right.
What a powerful way to end our conversation on itinerancy. Edgar, thank you so much for being here. David, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for joining us today on Pod Strangely Warmed. Until next time, I'm Daniel Hawkins. This has been Pod Strangely Warmed. If you enjoyed our conversation today, know that you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. On Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, any and all the places, we are there. So if you want to continue the good United Methodist conversation that you've been a part of today, find us, like us, rate us, review us, and share with a friend so that the good news that is happening right here in our own midst can amplify even more.
What's your good side?
All of them.
All of them? That's perfect.
Man, I think it's this. That's great. Then.
Yeah.
Good.
I don't have the fat
one.
side of my
Except
face and the skinny side of my face. I don't know why, but we've oriented this way.
We're asymmetrical, right? One, it's always like that. So I think this is the good one.
Okay.
I'm glad we're doing this, man. It's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
It's fun.
It's good.